Hey, folks, welcome to the Concealed Carry Podcast. We're glad to be back with you all after a 2-week hiatus. So, Matthew, there you are, virtually.
A little shot show interruption.
A week ago, I was hanging with you in person.
Yes, that
Which
was
doesn't
very
get to
cool.
happen very often.
No, that's one of my favorite things about shot show. Actually, is getting to see all you guys.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It was a good time. So, who we all got watching? Who's going to be the first to comment? What'd you think of that Fuku burger?
Man, that was honestly, that was probably my favorite place that we ate. I love burgers, and that I haven't had any burgers like that before, so it was really good. Definitely would get that again if we went back.
Yeah, I have to agree that. Yeah, it was pretty stellar. We ate some good meals while we were there. I don't think there was like that. Was it Peruvian?
Oh yeah, that was good.
That place was pretty good too,
Mm-hmm.
right? I enjoyed that one a lot.
Yeah.
But that Fuku burger place was like a Japanese burger fusion joint, and it was
Fantastic.
yeah. Hello, Gary and John and Paul and Will. Thank you for joining, everybody. Well, we'll kick this off here momentarily. Facebook user, hope you enjoyed Shot Show. I'm going to put this up just so people can see, like, those of you that are in the Guardian Nation members group that are watching the podcasts since we started dropping them in the group. That's quite literally what we see when it pops up in our chat. So it is helpful if you like sign your comments or something. I'm not saying you have to. I can go open up Facebook and follow along and see who's all there, but unfortunately, that sometimes causes some computer meltdowns when I try to run too many memory intensive programs all at once. But let's see, Andrew, thanks for checking in on YouTube, and to those of you out there, actually, we'll talk about this in a moment when we go live. So let's do that. We're going to be doing a recap of Shot Show. So, you ready to hit the record button, Matthew?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. In 3, 2, 1. This is the Concealed Carry Podcast, Season 5, Episode 5. And welcome to the Concealed Carry Podcast, part of the concealedcarry.com network, brought to you by Excess Sites. Today is Wednesday, January 26th, 2022, as of the recording of this show. And I am your host, Riley Bowman, joined today by co-host and producer Matthew Maruster.
I'm here again. Glad to be back, man.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you back. I'm glad you made it back from SHOT Show 2022 from Las Vegas there all the way across the country to Ohio. You didn't have any travel delays, it sounded like.
No, I had a one layover. I actually made my connecting flight this time and traveled home.
Yeah.
Happy to be back.
And that's a good thing, especially, including the fact that, this time of year when you're traveling cross country or through multiple airports, it is not uncommon to have weather related delays or cancellations even. So we're glad you made it back home safely, and we are glad to be with all of you folks. We took a week off there while we were at SHOT Show. Those of you that have been longtime listeners of the podcast know that in years past we've recorded episodes from SHOT Show. Quite often we've been partnered up with companies like Sig Sauer, or even at one time with Springfield Armory, being able to utilize some of their booths and record episodes and interviews with people right there from the show floor. That did not happen this year. And I'll be honest with you, I actually quite enjoyed it because I didn't have as many schedule conflicts and obligations. So it really allowed us to get around and see the show and check in with folks and interact with people. So I know that means a little bit less content for all of you directly from the show, but it was a good show. And that's actually what we're here to talk about today. This is our 2022 SHOT Show recap episode. We're going to share with you our takeaways from this year's show. It's been 2 years since we had a SHOT Show, and it was an interesting show. Overall, I'd say a good show, but an interesting one nonetheless. We're going to share with you some of our favorite products and top products and things that we saw at the show, new innovations, etc., and share with you kind of our winners, and I guess if there were any losers, I guess we could talk about those too, but mostly winners. And I look forward to getting into it with you. So today's episode, though, first sponsored and brought to you by XS Sights, our title sponsor. We got to see those folks at SHOT Show last week and shot a little video with them in their booth. We saw Zach and Addison and the whole gang there. So good time seeing XS Sights. We're proud of them for being associated with them and sponsors of this podcast. You know, I'm a huge fan of the R3D and F8 night sights. Particularly the F8s are really my favorite. You know, they're my jam. But one thing I was really excited to see is that XS Sights is rolling out new options and more options in their, we'll call them their suppressor height sight options. And what that means, there's also some R3D options available in suppressor height, in the suppressor sight height. There we go. That's what I was trying to say. And that was really cool to see. And in fact, I really like the look of the R3Ds in the suppressor sight height option because they kind of remind me of the F8. So, you know, the F8s kind of already come with a slightly taller profile, and for whatever reason, that profile has just always worked for me. And so the R3Ds are also an option to kind of get in that taller profile. So that's kind of cool. So thank you to XS Sights for sponsoring the Concealed Carry podcast. Folks, check them out at xssights.com. The next thing I want to share with you sponsor-wise is, a bit of a self-promotion, but still, a worthwhile one, and that is the 2022 Guardian Conference. Now, the thing I'm excited to share with you update-wise, and by the way, the 2022 Guardian Conference is, again, presented by our title sponsor, if you will, of the conference is CCW Safe. And so coincidentally, we're mentioning them today as a sponsor of today's episode as well. You can, of course, go to ccwsafe.com for picking up great coverage for legal defense in the case you have to use a gun or other lethal force. ccwsafe.com, but they are presenting sponsors of the 2022 Guardian Conference. They're back for year 2 with us, which we're proud to have them on board again. They were wonderful. They were a wonderful support to us last year, and we look forward to working with them in year 2. So here's the other cool thing. We have locked down some of our instructors for 2022. So I'm going to highlight some of them now. First of all, I'll mention some of those that are coming back that we know of, and there'll probably be a few more that we add to the list of instructors. But we have Chuck Haggard from Agile Training and Consulting coming back. He'll likely be doing some blocks again on the use of less lethal options, including pepper spray or OC spray. We'll probably have him teaching some other things as well. So super excited to have Chuck Haggard back. Probably, I would suspect we may have him back for a low light session too. So that was a popular one last year. We've got Matt Little committed to come back for this year. So super excited to have Matt Little and most likely Angela, his wife, assisting alongside with him as well. So that's really great. Todd Fosse will be back doing, I'll tell you, his classes were popular last year. Now, he's covering more of the, he doesn't maybe describe it this way, but the easiest way to describe it is more of the combative side of things. Okay. And more of the hand-to-hand side of the house. But he really takes a holistic, integrated approach. Of course, that's the name of his company, Integrative Defense Strategies.
Yes.
Anyway, IDS. He's a good dude. We're glad to have him back. Brian Eastridge will be back, host of the Off Duty, On Duty podcast. Brian McLaughlin back, of course, from Mountain Man Medical doing trauma-based courses. Sam Middlebrook, I will say, was going to be back. He was committed last year, but those of you that know, or maybe you don't know, he came down with a very severe case of COVID-19 in the weeks leading up before the conference, and I'll tell you that really wiped him out. And we're so happy that he recovered and is still working on his recovery, believe it or not. But we anticipate him to be back to full health, and he is looking forward to teaching at the 2022 conference. So some new instructors we have locked down for the conference. So that's the thing. Each year we anticipate we'll have some of the same faces and some new faces. We want this to be something where you can kind of count on some of the quality training you're gonna. I mean, you're always going to get quality training from all of our instructors at the event, but we want to have things where it's kind of consistent, but then also some new things added. So I just gave you some of the regular faces, if you will, or at least they're back for year 2. Here are some of the new faces. Mickey Shook from Carry Trainer. That'll be exciting for some of you that may know Mickey and enjoy his content or his training, that maybe some of you have attended his training that he does through Carry Trainer. So we're glad to have Mickey Shook on board. He's good friends of ours, and I'll tell you, it's not necessarily easy to get a guy like him lined up for an event like this. He also puts on his own great, incredible training events called S12, his S12 events. He's got one, I think, in May, and then another one later in the year as well. So super excited to have Mickey on board. We have AJ Zito lined up from Practical Performance. He is a world-renowned gunsmith, but also instructor, and spends a lot of time training and assistant instructing under Scott Jedlinski from Modern Samurai Project. And I anticipate we'll have AJ doing perhaps some classes that are focused on Red Dot or some of his other really great courses or curriculum that he's known for as well. It's hard to get Scott lined up for this event. AJ is the next best thing. So we're super excited to have AJ on board. And then also another probably lesser known name, but I'll tell you, this dude packs a punch and is well regarded in the training community and also in law enforcement circles as well. And that is Wayne Dobbs. And so I look forward to introducing our folks, attendees of the Guardian Conference, to we bring world-class instructors to this event, and Wayne Dobbs, even if you don't recognize the name, he is world-class. And I promise you will enjoy being taught by one of the best there as well. So, folks, that's a current lineup. And again, I do anticipate adding a few more. We will have at least a female instructor as part of this event. I know that's something that people have asked about, and it's not something that we intentionally left off of the roster of instructors at last year's event. It's just kind of the nature of, schedule availability and who is able to commit and get on board. So, but I'm working on, because people have said, I want to see a female instructor there. So I am really working hard to make sure we get, again, a world-class female instructor as part of the Guardian Conference. So there you go. That's the Guardian Conference. Learn more at guardianconference.com and get signed up. Super early bird pricing still available right now. And Guardian Nation members, you get the best price of all, of course. I do want to mention that one of our sponsors, I want to highlight one of the sponsors of the 2022 Guardian Conference is Gunfighter Gun Oil. All right. And so we're mentioning them also as a sponsor of today's podcast episode. You can learn more about Gunfighter Gun Oil at gunfighteroil.com. We sell them on our site as well at concealedcarry.com. But head on over to gunfighteroil.com. Check out their full lineup of gun care and maintenance products. I've been using Gunfighter Gun Oil for a while now, and it is now my exclusive gun care product. I'll put it out there as that. I'm not directly affiliated or sponsored by them directly in any way, but I've been using Gunfighter Gun Oil for a while now and really liking their products. And so check them out, gunfighteroil.com. All right, that's enough of sponsorship today. I know that was a lot to get through, but I know we were also talking about the conference a little bit and highlighting some of the instructors from that event. So, and I'm a little scratchy in the throat here. I'm going to have a quick sip. Okay. Let's now get into the 2022 SHOT Show recap. So I've been talking for a while here, Matthew. I want to hear first from you. Tell me about just kind of your overall take on this year's SHOT Show.
Yeah, I think I went in with some expectations, knowing that some big names like Glock and Sig and some of the other bigger names wouldn't be there. I went in with the expectation that it would be sort of it'd be a smaller crowd.
Mhm.
There'd be less people there, and there certainly were. I noticed it seemed much. The show floor wasn't as hectic as it normally is, which was actually a good thing. It really allowed you to get into different booths that you normally wouldn't, or get up close to things, and you weren't waiting for 20 minutes to get to get just eyes on something because there was such a mob. So in that respect, it was a little bit nicer to have a smaller crowd. I felt like early on it seemed like there wasn't a lot of energy in as much of people like running around here and there and doing these things. But as the show went on, I think it just kicked in a little bit later, or whatever. But there were a lot of people that showed up that we knew, and those people that you expected to see, we saw again and stuff. And so I thought the show overall, while there weren't like a lot of new guns or a lot of new products, the industry as a whole seemed to be bouncing back fine from not holding it last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that assessment. And I agree that, yeah, showing up first thing, the first event or first part of SHOT Show we attended was the day before SHOT Show, known as the Industry Day at the Range. So we went to that, of course, and there was kind of this initial of, sort of realization of there's not that many people here, and that felt kind of strange. At the same time, it was pretty dang awesome for us, for those that were in attendance, because normally you'd wander the industry day and you've got all these different range bays, basically, all these different companies that have showed up, put together a booth where they could feature their primarily their firearms, or some cases optics and different things. But obviously it's a range, so we expect to do a lot of shooting. So they've put that together, and normally you got to wait, like in lines. You go from one booth to the next booth to the next booth to the next booth, and like every time, you're kind of waiting a little bit typically to get up to the line and be able to get your hands on their products and actually shoot them. So it was really cool that most of the time there was very little to zero wait for us. So that was really cool. That allowed us to get around a little bit, see more of Industry Day itself, and get our hands on those things we really wanted to, and capture some content. And I also noticed too that in years past, and primarily because there was gobs of people, waiting in line to shoot stuff, they would hand you a magazine. Like, let's say you went to the I don't know, let's just say the Glock booth, for lack of another example. And you're like, hey, I want to shoot the I don't know, the Glock 44, and they'd be like, oh, here's a magazine with 5 rounds. There you go. There's your 5 rounds. You can shoot it 5 times, and congratulations, there you go. Now, sometimes some of the vendors were pretty cool. If you're like, hey, do you mind if I run another magazine through that? And they'd be like, yeah, okay, cool, whatever. Some would be like, hey, you shot your 5 rounds, get off the line, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So this was a lot more laid back, and that was cool because I didn't feel bad or out of place by simply asking, like, hey, can I shoot that a little bit more? And some of the vendors were awesome because there was nobody waiting, and they're just like, yeah, keep shooting, like, whatever. So that was cool. What that allowed us to do was, in the case of some of the new products, which we're going to highlight here in this episode, I'll just throw out one example. Would be anything associated with the new hotness, the new round, the 30 super carry, right? Which everybody's curious about. And the cool thing is we actually got to get our hands on with that more later on in the day, but I'll get to that in a minute. But at the it was actually at the it was Federal that had that bay reserved, and then they had on the line there their guns chambered in the 30 Super Carry, so the Shield Plus and the Shield EZ, as well as the new Nighthawk Custom gun that's chambered in 30 Super Carry, and that was cool too because I don't know if Nighthawk Custom was actually at the event. I don't recall seeing them, and I don't think they were, and so it was cool at least that we had an example of that new gun as well on the table. So I got to shoot those guns multiple times. I actually got to shoot like a Shield Plus in 9mm and compare it directly to the Shield Plus in 30 Super Carry, and then do the same thing with the Shield EZ. So that was nice because you want to, like, one of the top things that people want to know is how does the 30 Super Carry compare to other known cartridges, to the 9mm, for instance, or the 380. And so I'm going to speak some more to that here in a bit, but it was nice that I could have that opportunity and not feel rushed, and not feel like somebody was trying to push me through, because of this horde of other people in attendance. So fortunately, that was not the case, and so it was more relaxed. And initially, there was that kind of off-putting of, oh, this feels kind of dead. But as the event went on, it was like, no, actually, this is really awesome. So that was cool. The thing I alluded to is we got to get our hands on the 30 Super Carry guns some more later on in the day, because we got to jump in last minute on a special VIP event at Smith & Wesson that they were hosting at a local range as well, a different range than where Industry Days held, actually an indoor one. And that actually meant that I got to run several magazines worth of 30 Super Carry through their guns, and also check out some of their other guns as well. So that was a great opportunity. Before we probably lose our way too much here, Matthew, I kind of want to ask you, well, no, since we're on the topic of kind of like, what was the show like? What was the feeling like? What was the traffic like? Tell us a little bit about, we talked about Industry Day a little bit there, but tell us your thought about the actual show floor. So Tuesday through Friday. Of course, we were really only primarily there Tuesday through Thursday, but tell us a little bit about kind of just your overall impression of the indoor part of the show.
Yeah, I ran, and it's weird because we go there not with just like an idea of like, hey, I just want to walk around and look at the new stuff. We have kind of a mission that we go out, and especially as I'm trying to go out and get content to write on, right? So if it were just me going out there and wanting to see the stuff that I wanted to see, I might approach it a little bit differently. But since our time is kind of scheduled while we're there for the most part, and it's so big that you intend to go see this, when you're done getting all this, seeing all this stuff that you have to, and getting all this information, and photos and whatnot, that you sometimes don't get around to getting back over to that area. So but I focused a lot on the stuff that I felt I wouldn't normally get to see, like the smaller companies that might be the first time there, or there's a section, if you've been to the SHOT Show, there's a section where they have like new companies that they haven't really, they're brand new and they don't have a booth on the floor, so they're kind of new exhibits type thing. I try to focus on those, and the ones that just got their new booths, right? Like the first year that they're at the booth, and or at SHOT Show with a substantial booth. And so I kind of like getting off and looking at those, the ones that people might not really hear about. So that was kind of cool for me to switch it up a little bit from years past.
Yep. Yeah, and I concur with that as well. The actual show was slower for sure, but it was nice again that we could, for instance, like in years past, it's always been one of those things where if you realize you have a 10 o'clock appointment on Wednesday morning and it's, 9:45 or 9:50, and you're on the complete opposite end of the show floor from where your appointment is, 10 minutes might not be enough time actually to get, kind of your way to fight your way through the crowds and get to the other side of the show.
Mm-hmm.
So it was actually nice that there again was not so much traffic that it was like, oh, I need to get over there. And in years past, you might be like, even if it wasn't an appointment thing, if it was just simply a, oh, I forgot I needed to check in with so and so or such company, and you're like, I'm not sure I want to, walk those extra steps and fight my way through the masses of people. This year made that type of decision a lot easier. It was like, oh, I'll just stroll on over there, no big deal. So that was nice. And this year they added a whole extended portion of the show in what they call a Caesar's Forum, which is a whole new building that was built over the last 2 years. I remember they started working on that about 2 years ago. Like they were closing down one of the parking lots we used to park in to walk over to the show. They started closing off portions of that 2 years ago. And so that whole new add-on was constructed and finished, and quite a nice, beautiful indoor ballroom type setting with the typical conference center layout of these large rooms, and a bunch of companies over in that section of that new section of the show, and that expanded things out too as well, and I think further kept the lower attendance numbers just spread out more, which probably not a bad idea from a COVID perspective, but also again just reduced the overall pressure on the show, and it was kind of nice. Now, I did see some photos and things that came out here and there throughout the show of kind of showing how parts of the show floors were kind of dead. It didn't look like there was a lot going on. That probably wasn't the best look, but mostly where I spent my time during the show had pretty decent traffic. I mean, there wasn't a lot of people just standing, in terms of vendors or exhibitors standing around doing totally nothing. And the other nice thing was that we were able to have better, deeper, more relationship building conversations with people throughout the week, and that was a pleasant surprise. So I really enjoyed that aspect of the show. So now we kind of talked about the overall feel of the show, attendance. I mean, it was definitely down. I don't know how that reflects from the perspective of the exhibitor. If, like, I know talking to some of the people that work for some of those companies, they were like, oh, this was so nice to not be so slammed and busy and constantly re-answering the same questions again and again and again and again for, hordes and crowds of people. But whether the companies will look at it and think, oh, there was ROI or there wasn't a ROI for them, I don't know. I do feel like we thought there was ROI, return on investment, for us and for our company. And in terms of the content that we went there to get, I felt like we got what we set out to get. I mean, we didn't know exactly how that was going to play out, but once we were there on the ground and saw how everything laid out and kind of what it was going to be like, we mapped out what we wanted to hit, and we pretty much hit everything we wanted to hit. And so that was good. So let's kind of shift focus a little bit to some of the products, the actual products, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to hear from you first, Matthew. Like, what were a handful of things that really stood out to you product wise?
Yeah, I was able to get some content written while we were there, and I try to highlight the ones that I guess interested me the most, and that I had some quick things that I could point out, and I highlighted one, and Mark in the chat here on Facebook even noted. Asked about a company called We1 Tactical, like WEE, and they make these AR-15s for kids, and so they're a scaled down AR-15. I think they're 30% smaller than the a typical AR-15, but the way they function is the same. They shoot a 22 long rifle, so you're not just taking a AR-15 and making it shoot 22. It's something that is proportionate to a child. So as you're teaching them how to shoot, you could teach them on a 10-22 or something like that, or you can teach them how to shoot with an AR-15, and it has a kind of a nifty safety selector switch with an override thing that you can kind of lock out. Really kind of a neat little product from, like I said, one of those companies that the booth was in the basement, so that they don't get as much as the main floor as far as traffic or maybe interest. But I thought that was a really cool little unit. I went over to if you guys have followed our site at all, we've kind of worked with not worked with them, but been along for the ride with a company called Vara Safety, and with their biometric safes, as they have kind of evolved those, and they released a new one that's in beta testing right now, but it's for a rifle, and it's called RACT, RACT, and that was pretty neat. The technology that went into that is even surpassed the systems that I've tested in the past that I was pretty impressed with. So those were two things. I have 4 or 5 other things, but I don't want to monologue here. But those were two, kind of, one from a company that was on the main floor in that Caesars kind of area with Vara Safety. They were up the last time we saw them. They were in the new product show, new products. And we won tactical, which I had never heard before. And actually our social media guy, Mitch, was like, "Hey, did you see this?" And I must have walked by it, 2 or 3 times and didn't think anything of it. And then when we went back over there, I was like, this is pretty cool. So, yeah.
And by the way, you're totally welcome to monologue, because I do it all the time.
It's your show, man.
Got a give and take here. So yeah, good thoughts there. So we won tactical. I didn't actually get my hands on that or spend a lot, any time looking at it, because I just didn't get really over to that part of the show much myself. But I saw your article that you put up on the site and heard other people talk about it. And here's what I really like about that from a product standpoint. First of all, standard AR-15s are already pretty customizable and can be made to suit smaller shooters pretty well. But this is taking that same design of a rifle and purpose building it for a youth shooter, and that's cool. But here's what else is cool about it, is that this just helps further normalize firearms like that for the general populace, and for children. All right. I know that some people might not necessarily like to hear that outside of our circle, but the AR-15 is America's rifle. It just is at this, where we are at. I mean, that wasn't maybe the case 30, 40, 50 years ago, when, I don't know, say a Winchester Model 70 or Remington Model 700 or a Winchester 30-30 might have been America's rifle at that point. But now it's the AR-15. It is. It just is. And the anti-gunners don't like that one bit. Many of our politicians don't like that and would like to change that. And the more we make it truly ingrained and embedded into our culture and identity as Americans, the idea of an AR-15 just being a standard, typical, common tool, the more difficult it'll make it for them to take them away. And so making a purpose-built, kid-sized AR, I think is great. In an appropriate caliber too, 22 long rifle. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And of course, any 22 caliber ARs are typically taking an AR and then trying to reverse engineer them into a 22, like basically just fit a 22 long rifle into something that was clearly designed for something much bigger than that. And I mean, they kind of work, but they don't work as well as something that's purpose built for that. So that was a cool thing to see. All right, so I'll give you a couple things that stand out in my mind. Again, getting my hands on the new hotness, the 30 Super Carry, was a good experience, and it was one that we needed to do. I think to do justice to our listeners and viewers and followers of this podcast and concealcarry.com. So to give you my quick summary on that, from a shooting perspective, I like the 30 Super Carry. I think it shoots well. I think it generally shoots a little bit more manageably than a 9mm, but not significantly so. So for those that, and there's been some talk in the last few weeks of, well, it's kind of in between a 380 and a 9, or it's power of a 9 but in a 380 shooting package. I'd really say the 30 Super Carry is closer to a 9 in terms of how it shoots than a 380, if I'm being frank. And and I had plenty of opportunities to shoot the 30 Super Carry side by side with the 9mm. So to have that very direct comparison. Now I don't recall that we actually had 380s to directly compare to, but I know pretty well how a 380 feels compared to a 9. And again, comparing the 30 Super Carry straight across to a 9, like seriously taking the same pistols side by side, shooting the 9mm version and then shooting the 30 Super Carry version. The 30 Super Carry is very close to a 9 in how it shoots and recoils. Would you agree, Matthew?
Oh yeah, absolutely. If you had the same gun, let's say you had like a Shield Plus or something, and you had it in 380 Super Carry 9mm, and you closed your eyes and just picked them up, you may, if you shoot a ton, right, like of different calibers, you may be able to say, hey, I feel a little bit of difference, but I honestly, in this, maybe I'm not as in tune with the the forces and everything like that, but it would be hard. I think the average person would be hard pressed to be able to tell you 100% this is a 9mm, this is a 380, and this is a Super Carry. I think they're very similar.
Yeah,
that was just what I perceive.
And honestly, the physics of that check out too. I mean, if you do the math, all right, most of the 30 Super Carry loads are what would be considered kind of heavy for caliber, meaning that 30 Super Carry, most of the common loads were in the 105 to 100, even 115 grain weight range, 105 to 110. For the diameter, the size of that bullet, that's kind of heavy for caliber, right? When we're talking about like 9mm, heavy for caliber in 9mm, those bullets are the 147 grain weight bullets, right? 9mm, kind of the happy medium, is that 124 to 135 grain weight zone. 124 really probably being the standard, if you will. 115 is obviously very common, but it's a little bit on the light side for caliber. So in 30 Super Carry, I honestly expected to see like some stuff out there in the like 85 to 95 grain weight area, but most everything again was 100 grains plus in weight. I suspect a lot of that has to do with the engineering of this round and really trying to make sure this was a round that would consistently penetrate greater than 12 inches in ballistic gelatin, right? Because this is marketed to be something that favors comparably to a 9mm in terminal performance, but in a smaller package to get greater capacity and hopefully a little bit less of a recoil effect in the gun. And again, the physics check out here. So we're taking bullets in the 100 plus grain weight category and pushing them at 1,250 feet per second. That's moving along pretty good, right? So that's plus P territory in the case of like 9mm rounds, or that's a pretty that's a 357 SIG, You know, there's obviously 357 SIGs that are faster than that, but it just kind of puts it in comparison. Like that's moving right along. So it's got some oomph to it. The surprising thing for me was that for whatever reason, I still don't understand it, but something about the tuning of the guns has got to be the difference maker here. But when I shot the Shield Plus in both of those calibers, the 9 and the 30 Super Carry, they felt very similar. I think I would seriously have a hard time telling the difference between the two if you handed them to me blindly. For some reason, shooting the Shield EZ in the 9 and then again in the 30 Super Carry, that one was more noticeable for me.
Yes.
Why? I don't know. But I would actually say that the 30 Super Carry in the Shield EZ was quite nice shooting. It was comfortable shooting. And so that was an interesting takeaway from all that. So again, we got a lot of time on those guns at the Smith & Wesson private event that we were able to attend. And, I put it over a box of ammo and maybe the better part of 2 boxes of ammo through the 30 Super Carry. So I got a pretty good read on that cartridge so far. And I'm curious to see, where it goes. Will it take off? I don't know. Does it fit a niche that, is viable? Yeah, I think there's something potentially there. But this is a marketplace where 9 is dominant, 380 is pretty popular as well. So to try to slide something else in there and take over a significant part of the market share, it's kind of like what you and I talked about a few weeks back, where we basically said it's 50-50.
Yeah.
I think the market's primed for it potentially. But I could also see it where in 5 years, we're not even talking about it anymore.
Yeah.
As well.
Well, the rep I spoke to there, I spoke to him specifically about like what's going to be the availability and the cost. And we were actually shooting at the range a 30 Super Carry round from Blazer Brass. And so that would be, your Full Metal Jacket training round. And he said that they anticipate when it hits, production and is available, it'll probably be around the cost of 380. So, I don't know. I'm always kind of, I'm not shocked anymore, but like I kind of laugh when people get angry about a company making something new. It's like, why not just focus on this? And it's like, man, I mean, innovation's innovation. It's not taking anything away from you for Federal to come up and try to make a new cartridge. So if it's great. If it's not, it goes away and you live your life, so I don't know, we'll see.
Yep I'm going to address a couple questions real quick so I don't forget them. Coming through on the comments here, Buckeye 2A on YouTube says, what's your thought on the FN high power? So I got my hands on that. I didn't get to shoot it, but got to examine it obviously close up in person. And it's a modern take on the old FN high power or Browning high power pistol, obviously being made by FN. And there's some changes that they made to that design that I liked. Like I thought the safety on it was improved, and I liked that aspect of it. But I think probably if you're into that sort of thing, if you like the high power design, probably some of the other offerings, like from the recently released Springfield Armory SA35, and including I've heard this from people that I trust that like really know guns. I think that's probably a better option from what I've seen and from what I've been hearing. Also, EAA has come out with their own version of a high power, and I've heard that's a pretty decent take on that design as well, when compared to the new FN version of the high power. So I don't know, it was okay. I think it's probably overpriced for what it is, and that's probably honestly the biggest knock on it from my perspective. But that's my thought on the new FN high power. Did you take a look at that at all, Matthew?
I didn't. Nope.
Okay. Buckeye asks, safety and trigger any better? Maybe. It's like, again, the safety design was, I thought, substantially improved. and I believe it was ambidextrous, even if I'm not mistaken. And but it functioned very very nicely, very ergonomic, and the trigger. Honestly, it's been a while since I handled a high power trigger. I would describe it as about what you would expect. I mean, not bad. It's single action, obviously, but not particularly great either. It's acceptable. So that's what I would say as far as to answer those questions. There was another question too. Someone asked, "Did you get to shoot the Palmetto State 5.7 gun?" This is known as the Palmetto State Rock, the Rock pistol, 5.7 by 28 millimeter chambered gun. Did you get to your hands on that one, Matthew?
Nope. Once again, I was I was down in the catacombs trying to find the new thing that nobody's heard of. So I did not.
So I presume this one was at Industry Day, but I did not see it. And I went to the Palmetto State Armory booth. Maybe I saw it, but thought it was actually the Ruger 5.7. But the weird thing is I didn't hear anything about this until like a couple days into the show. And I never actually got over and looked at it. I'll be honest, it's one of those things that's like, it's not. I know some of you are particularly interested in this type of thing. For a long time, we only had the FN 5.7 pistol, right? For a long, long, long time. And now all of a sudden, the last couple of years, we have a couple of offerings in this. As a cartridge, I am not particularly enamored by the 5.7 cartridge, particularly in pistol form. I think it's a novelty, personally speaking. So I had other priorities, I guess, to take care of. Brad's the one who's asking about this. So I'm sorry I didn't actually get over and look at the new Palmetto State Armory, the Rock pistol. I was looking at some articles and things about it online and thought, okay, it kind of looks like the Ruger version and kind of looks like a more svelte version of the FN 5.7. So that's what I got to say about that. I mean, as far as Palmetto State's concerned, it looks like a pretty decent, take on this type of concept. Looks like a relatively decent pistol. The price point certainly is appealing, particularly for a gun in that cartridge. But yeah, that's all I got to say about that. Let's see. I was going to throw out one other thing, Matthew. I mean, we saw obviously a number of things, but something else that stood out to me. Now, part of that is a personal connection, but and by that I mean a friend of mine, Chad Enos, works for Kel-Tec,
right?
And we find out on Industry Day that they have a new pistol that they were coming out with. Now, they didn't have it at Industry Day, which I thought was too bad, but we did get to see it on the show floor, and it is called the P15, and it is a all new from the ground up design from Kel-Tec in 9mm, and it's kind of interesting because they took a bit of a departure from what they have been known for in the past, which they're say like their P32, P3AT, P11s, PF9 type pistols that were very much polymer pistols. The P15 came out with two versions or two options: a polymer framed model as well as an aluminum framed model, where obviously the aluminum one is milled. Okay. I don't. Yeah. So that was kind of interesting to see. Was like, oh wow, this is different. The aluminum version actually had grips, grip panels on it, like wood grip panels.
Yeah.
That was kind of interesting, So again, we're so used to seeing these very plain polymer molded pistols from Kel-Tec. This was an interesting departure from what they're known for. So got my hands on that, got to compare the aluminum one to the polymer one. I definitely preferred the aluminum one over the polymer one. It felt pretty good in the hand, perhaps a little bit some people would say, well, it's got a really high bore axis or that kind of thing, and I don't get too tore up about that. I shoot a P320 after all, and shoot it pretty well. It had some interesting, unique features to it. So they have basically a whole like the top rear part of the slide. The whole thing can be replaced, and you can get different. They're not exactly plates, but you get these different adapters, if you will. Because again, it's more than a plate. It kind of replaces a whole chunk of the slide, and you can get different ones for different optics. Okay, so that's cool. So it's optics ready. And then the other thing that was interesting is it's California compliant. So that's particularly interesting because a lot of the newer manufacturers really struggle releasing guns and having them be California compliant. And then that would also be true for states like Massachusetts and stuff. So these are states where, like, to use California as an example, like the new production guns have to meet certain criteria. They've got to have a certain, they got to have manual safeties involved. Then they've got to get approved and get on the list. And I don't know that the Kel-Tec B15 is actually on the list yet, but the fact that they designed it to be California compliant means it has a good chance of being approved as a new production pistol and making it onto that list. So now by that, it has a grip safety and also has a magazine disconnect safety. But what was kind of cool and interesting and innovative that Kel-Tec did on this is with the quick twist of a screwdriver, you can very quickly disable the grip safety as well as the magazine disconnect safety, and also disable them individually. So that was like, oh, this is interesting. So got my interest as well. I mean, Mark said he heard California compliant and perked up. I did as well. So because it's cool to see companies innovate and creatively solve problems like this. And it's unfortunate we even have to go down this road because of legislation like that in the state of California and other similar states. But kind of cool to see them come up with a solution to potentially, make it possible to please both sides, both those that want to have a California compliant pistol because they are in California, and not bog everybody else down with unnecessary safety features.
Yeah, and the way you change that is really cool. It doesn't take machining or you need a new part or anything. It's just like a screw that you set it at a different point, and it's pretty neat that way.
It is that simple. Like you disassemble, you take the slide off the gun, and then there is a screw that you take a flathead screwdriver to, and you turn it one way and disables one safety. You turn it another way, disables both safeties. You turn it, it's like, okay, that's cool. Bravo on a creative solution for something like that. So we'll see what comes of the new Kel-Tec B15. Any other thoughts on that one, Matthew?
No, just it was really it was neat. The polymer one looks Kel-Tec. The checkering on the grip and all that is very Kel-Tec, you'd recognize, but the aluminum frame one was really strange, not strange looking, but strange for a Kel-Tec gun, that it had the grip panels and stuff like that. So
Mark says, guys, stop talking about how easy it is to disable the safety. California is watching. I don't know what to say, Mark. Okay, so a couple other things. Holosun.
Yes.
New optics from Holosun. I know guys are out there going to be like, stop supporting China, which I understand. All right. Heck, we are an American-based business that also happens to manufacture some products ourselves here in the States. So I am all about that American manufacturing. However, Holosun, out of all of the optics companies out there, is innovating the hardest and the fastest. There are benefits because of that. Okay. And one of the benefits, I hope, is that it, and I believe this has already been shown to be true from a number of American or European optics companies, is that by Holosun innovating like that, puts more pressure on their American and European counterparts. So, Matthew, did you get a good look at the Holosun optics, the new products from them?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your thoughts there.
Really cool. They have, and you can go further in depth because you spoke with, I think Adam, quite a bit about that, but they have a really cool streamlined solar charged, they've always had that solar strip, right? Not always, but, you know, a lot of their models have that solar strip as a backup to a battery, but they have one that doesn't use a external battery or replaceable battery. It's an internal battery that is charged solar by sunlight, runs for like 20,000 hours, and it's super thin line. It's, you know, machined specifically for different, you know, it's not just a standard one that you fit to your gun. There are different models for your gun that fit more in line with, in order to use the standard sights, I believe, in a lot of these guns. So because it's sitting so much, you know, it's not as tall, it's lower down. You may be able to forego, you know, suppressor height sights in some guns and stuff, but just that they have a closed emitter that you can talk about. But I thought that's the SCS solar charging sight, I think is what it's called, was really neat, and has all the same, you know, reticles and stuff that on the Holosuns, and I just thought it was really cool. But, you know, like you said, Holosun is innovating, and I think that that's fantastic. And if other companies aren't doing it and they're just relying on, hey, they're from China, don't buy their stuff. I mean, at a certain point, people are going to say, yeah, but why aren't you doing this? And so I think it's good for the you know, red dot optic market.
Yep. So the SCS, amazing technology. Now, we actually saw a prototype of this a couple years ago from them. They had it on the show floor. Like they didn't make a big deal of it or really, you know, talk about it a whole lot. So this has been kind of, I'll be honest, I thought that they experimented with it and kind of went, it's not really working, and we're moving, you know, we're killing that project. Well, all of a sudden, bam, they show up with the SCS and with some very finished, nice looking production quality units that we saw at SHOT Show. The couple things about it. To your point, with the SCS, well, let me back up just a touch. The whole concept of the SCS is Holosun is basically telling the marketplace, stop worrying about certain optic footprints and adapter plates and filler plates and this cut versus that cut. You have a gun, Glock, SIG, HK, right? Whatever that comes with a particular cut. We're just going to make this optic be for whatever that cut is.
Makes sense, right?
Right. So like Glock has the MOS, right? And MOS is non-specific to a particular optic footprint. It is just a cut in a slide, and then you get the appropriate MOS plate, which, by the way, aren't particularly known for longevity and durability. Most people use third-party aftermarket plates with the Glock MOS system, at least those that want to see their optics stay on their pistol for longer than a couple thousand rounds. So Holosun just says, we're going to just make a Glock MOS optic, and bam, you slap it on. Oh, well, you have a SIG pistol? Well, you just buy the SIG one, and bam, direct fit onto the SIG cut. Oh, you have a HK VP9. By the way, I took a look at the new HK VP9 SC. Is that right? Yeah, subcompact. Or SK, excuse me, SK model. And HK has their own unique cut that works with their own particular design of a pistol optic plate. But Holosun just, hey, we have the HK version, right? Boom, you just buy the optic that's appropriate for your particular gun, stick it on. Really cool concept. Now, the challenge there is it's probably challenging for Holosun to have to manufacture and cut and mill and whatever, all these different optic sizes or dimensions, but it's a very unique solution on the consumer side because it makes it very simple. Because then you're not wondering about, well, this gun versus this gun versus this cut versus this cut versus this optic, like you're not trying to do all this like algebra in your head to make a pistol optic fit your particular slide. You just simply, oh, that's the Glock one and I have a Glock, so I buy the Glock one. So pretty cool, and from what I saw, pretty well executed. I was a little bit dubious showing up and looking at it, and then kind of walked away going, okay, there's something maybe to this, and I'm intrigued. So I saw working like production quality options on both the HK VP9SK as well as on the Glock pistols, and shot with the Glock one and was quite impressed with it. The downside is it sits so low on the gun that even with the factory sights, I feel like the sights obscure more of the optic window than I'd like to see.
Mm-hmm.
It made me think I need to get even lower profile sights than the factory one, because I don't, I really just need the sights to stick up just the tiniest amount to give me, because they're intended to be backup. The whole point of the optic is to make it simple, and all I got to do is focus on the target and look for a dot. And if I have sights obscuring my view, then it's sort of defeating one of the main benefits of using the optic in the first place. But cool idea, and again, I was quite enthused with what I saw. The new EPS and EPS carry optics also pretty huge innovations, I think, because people were already excited 2 years ago with the new 407, 507K models that were sized appropriately for your sub and micro compact pistols. Well, the 507, 407K models are open emitter optics. All of a sudden, roll out the EPS carry, which stands for Enhanced Pistol Sight, or excuse me, Enclosed Pistol Sight. And the carry version is the narrower. It's basically like a 507K sized optic that happens to be enclosed. Enclosed pistol optics is the future. I don't necessarily have a problem with open emitter optics, particularly from a concealed carry perspective, because they're not really exposed to the same, the elements and things like something that's being carried openly or in a duty holster or that kind of thing. But enclosed is, I think, the future. So this is the smallest enclosed optic I've seen out there yet, and it surprisingly was very usable. Had a nice large window for what it is. And this is a direct mount to a P365 XL pistol, a Hellcat, whatever. Okay. Well, you might still have the Hellcat does have those taller posts, but anyway, the point is like that footprint, that cut is what this EPS carry was designed around. Now the EPS was the same cut essentially, but it's wider. And I'm not sure if I fully understand where the EPS fits in, because I don't know. Again, it's basically the same cut front to back as the 507K and the Romeo Zero, the RMSC, and all that kind of stuff, but it was wider. I don't know, but it's an option. So, but very small, compact, enclosed emitter pistol optics. Really cool to see. Again, Holosun is really pushing the envelope with what's possible in very small pistol-sized optics. And I think that's a good thing for all the rest of us.
For sure.
So, there are probably some other things we could talk about, but we're kind of at that hour mark of the show. I'll just throw it to you, Matthew. Any last things like you want to throw out there that, oh, hey, this was cool or this was unique?
I'll just kind of, I know this might not interest everybody out there, but it was cool just to get back to a trade show, because a lot of these have been canceled through over the last year or two or whatever, and it was just cool to actually see people out and about. Now, even though there were mask enforcers going around, they were attempting to enforce a mask rule, but it was just good to kind of be out with a bunch of people that said, "Hey, let's get back to doing business and living our lives." And I thought that was encouraging to me. So I don't know.
Agreed. And to that point, there was a lot of negativity surrounding the show with respect to so-called mask mandates, and we were told that masks were going to be required at the show and they would be enforced. Although largely there was, I would say, a good 25 to 33% of attendees weren't really wearing masks. And as the show went on throughout the week, fewer and fewer people wore masks, and fewer code enforcers, if you want to call them that. They were labeled as safety officers. Fewer and fewer of them continue to enforce mask wearing. So, yeah, I know that the show couldn't happen if the show folks didn't agree to requirements placed upon them by the local authorities, including venue owners. I kind of suspected that's how it was going to go, that we were going to be told this is what you have to do, and that it was going to be kind of loosely enforced. And that was essentially what it was. I mean, loosely, again, there were people there that were definitely saying, "Hey, mask on, you gotta, please, sir, put on your mask." But when you have one safety officer for every 500 people in attendance or whatever, like it's a bit of a losing battle. So there were definitely plenty of folks that were waving their "Don't Tread on Me" flags, virtually, if you will, and saying simply they were not going to comply and chose to not wear their masks, and that's fine. Like I admittedly spent plenty of times myself not really wearing my mask, but yeah, that was the show. You know what? If you didn't go to the show this year, I kind of think you missed out. Those of you that are able to go to the show. Again, the show is generally only open for people in the industry, meaning that this is for FFLs and dealers and gun shop and gun store owners and producers and manufacturers of products in that space, and then of course the media people that cover those things, which happens to include us. But if you were able to go to the show and you chose not to for a variety of reasons, I honestly think you missed out. I thought it was a great show. I thought it was highly productive for us and our team, and I'm glad we went, because there were definitely discussions in the weeks leading up to the event about, should we go? Is it still going to happen? Is this a worthwhile investment of our money? It's expensive to go, and I feel like it was a good show for us. So I'm glad we went. I hope you enjoyed hearing our coverage and our sharing of kind of our favorite things, or our takeaways, if you will, from the show. And so that's that. It's time to wrap it up. But before we let you go, we do need to let you know that we have we have a winner to announce with respect to our weekly podcast giveaway. Folks, if you don't recall, every week we refresh the giveaway page with a new product and a new opportunity to sign up for the free giveaway. You need to go to concealedcarry.com/podcast prize to do that. This week we're giving away a free Pitbull Tactical Universal Mag Pouch. And next week we're giving away 9mm dummy rounds from Ready Up Gear. So who is our lucky winner of a Universal Mag Pouch this week from Pitbull
The
Tactical?
lucky winner is Alex R.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Alex. We will get in touch with you to claim your prize. And again, next week, folks, we're going to give away a pack of Ready Up Gear 9mm dummy rounds, or snap caps, if you will. That's the brand name of another brand. Probably not supposed to mention, but that's what people a lot of times refer to them as. So there you go. Make sure you sign up. concealedcarry.com/podcast prize. And again, folks, check out our sponsors and support them. XSsites.com. gunfighteroil.com. Don't forget about the Guardian Conference, guardianconference.com, which is held in Oklahoma City later this year in September 16th through the 18th. We are going to have a fantastic training conference this year. We anticipate it bigger, better, and more awesomer than last year. And we appreciate our sponsors of that, which includes our presenting sponsor, CCW Safe. Thank you for your support. We're glad to be back. I'll be back later today with Jacob recording another episode where we're going to cover legislative news updates. So look forward to that. And until next time, take care. Matthew?
Yeah. Thanks guys for listening.
And a reminder to train right, train often, and train safe so you can fight hard, fight fast, and fight true. Take care.